2 Matts, 1 Market.
Yep. So
Been a while.
This is Matt Kirschling, Matthew Kemps, and then guest Jason Randall.
There we go. Jason Randall, the real estate agent. We got to let the guests know. I know he's a big deal, but not everybody knows him. So what we were talking about is no silver bullets, no way to reinvent the wheel or anything along those lines. And I'm always asking myself, like, who's doing it the way that, like, seems to be the best? And when you really start to dig and you see what's going on and everything along those lines, if someone will, kind of open up the trunk and say, like, here's what's going on, it's usually not as sexy as it sounds. And if they're not willing to open up the trunk, I'm kind of asking myself why, because I don't believe that there's any sort of, like, secret sauce. You'd see it, right? We always talk about companies like McDonald's or Walmart, these big conglomerates that, as you put it before we got on here, that have a process that is so seamless that almost anyone can do it.
Yep.
Right? Like, and if you want to come in and fry the French fries, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
But you better know the roadmap, because I think that's what's made me successful is that the roadmap has been laid out. But I want to change now. I want to do things totally different because the market's changed, and you have to shift with the market. I mean, would you agree with that, Matt?
If you don't, you die. I mean, that's how it always is. And it's interesting because, like, the shifts, they ebb and flow, and I've been doing it long enough to where, like, I feel like we're going to get back into, like, what I remember 2011 being, which was, you had a ton of people exiting the market in, like, 08 and 09. And although there wasn't, like, some boom in 2011, it was a good market because everybody was, they were kind of like, oh, the market's, it's slow, there's nothing there. And so there was just more market share to gobble up, which was exciting.
That market took a long time from 2008, 9, 10. I mean, there was some hard times for a lot of agents. And I got my real estate license in 08.
That's
so
what, yeah.
I was like, let's just go at the perfect time. Let's just get my real estate license in the hardest market that I've ever seen. But even this past, year, everybody's struggled. It's been, with the rates at, as high as, what is the highest rates you've seen so far in the last 12 months?
Oh, I mean, depending on credit and everything, we were seeing stuff, 8.25, 8.5.
So it kind of shifted in that same direction. Things slowed down so much that now the Feds are talking about finally cutting rates a little bit. New president, new election. I mean, I think you're going to see a 2010, and I think the buyers that are sitting on that sideline right now are sitting there long enough. I have one right now that looked at investment property last night. She's like, I just want to wait till, a little bit longer, Jason. I was like, well, when you wait, when the rates go down, Matt, what happens next?
Prices go up.
And if you don't catch that, I mean, when you buy stocks, you want to buy low, sell high, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm feeling a very prime time right now, not coming for a sales pitch, but just basically from a consumer standpoint, knowing that when that price does go up, then everybody's going to be in that same predicament they were before where it's multiple offers. And Matt, didn't you just have one? We talked about that last night.
2 different ones. We had one that was not listing-wise, but I was entertaining on the buyer side. Without going into address details, in the northern west portion of Austin, list price was 1.65. It is under contract. I don't know the number, but they have an idea that it's over 2.1. Wow. And that was 4 to 5 days on market. Really, it was 4 days because they gave us a deadline of 4 days, and then the 5th day was the decision day.
Was this a property that was kind of like in an area that was, highly sought after? The property itself was in,
So it's yes, but no. It was the location within the location.
Got it. Well, and that's the reason I say that is because one of the lines, I feel like this show, I talk to so many agents and so many real estate professionals that we have these like catchphrases, and the one that we've been using a lot lately is that, over the last 12 months, buyers are either looking for the deal or the diamond.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like that one was more the diamond
this
than
was
the
the
deal.
pocket diamond.
Right. And there's nothing you can do about those. I mean, if something comes on the market that's just highly sought after, it's probably going to go. There's always somebody with FU money.
It's okay. So if you can imagine, for anyone watching, imagine River Place views looking west with the canopy tree kind of look.
Yeah, yeah.
But you got 4,600 square feet with a pool with a hot tub. Inside the home is a 7.5 out of 10.
It was amazing. I saw it online. I looked
Yeah.
at it last night. And believe it or not, I was looking for another client because I was looking at the exact same area. Not at that price point. We were about, 500,000 less.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it and I saw it. I told you, I saw it like yesterday. I was like, how did I even saw this house?
Yep.
It was pretty amazing. It was.
They priced it really well, too.
Yeah.
So that's the listing. Props to her. She did a great job. When I ran the comps, I was coming into like 168 to 1.7. They were priced at 1.65. Drove a ton of traffic. Actually, technically, they were 1.649, so below 1.65 for the threshold. but they did a really, really good job on driving the traffic there. And it was the first time all year in luxury. I know it's still early in the year, but first time this year, I actually was like 4th or 5th in line to go see the house, even with showing time.
Do you think the comps show that is worth the value, or what do you think the comps show after
That worth the sales price now?
Yeah,
No chance.
no chance. Okay.
Everyone in that neighborhood, unfortunately for us, is now going to go straight to her. You're going to list my home now. This seller, because I know what they bought this home for 3 years ago, just made over $1 million on this home in 3 years.
Wow.
There was a strategic approach with an agent locally that would price his houses so low. I'm talking like literally or 200,000 below, like something in Round Rock, Hutto, appraised value pretty much would show around 5.
Yeah.
But they would come around 4 or 399, and it was just, I mean, you would have just an influx of people. We're talking like 20 to 30 offers. So that's why I was asking that question, if that was the
I
case.
try to
Not
explain
that
this
bad.
to my buyers because, this is where
Yeah.
real estate agents really need
Correct.
to, I feel like real estate agents really need to kind of talk more about this because you run into a scenario where exactly what you're describing occurs. And then I always tell that buyer, look, it's imperative that you reach out to your real estate agent and have them run kind of a comparative market analysis because I know you're getting excited about this property, but this could just be a marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And do you really want to put yourself in a position to where you're getting excited about a home that's like not even going to come close to what they're asking for it? And now you're pissed off because, I've seen buyers that are like, why would they even do that? Well, it's because it drives traffic, number one, and creates competition. And, it kind of almost discourages buyers, right? Because now they're like, oh my gosh, we're in a multiple offer situation. Like we're never going to get a house. And it's like, look, this was kind of a one-off scenario that was created by the listing agent. And I don't think there's enough talk about that.
It's a strategic approach that California uses a lot. It's a very, very
They
common
also have different way of multiple offers too.
Yes, they do.
They have on their actual forms. There's a checkbox saying multiple offers, and you go that route.
Because it's so common.
Yeah.
It's just, but here locally, I've never seen anything like what this guy does. And it's discouraging for a lot of my consumers and discouraging for us as agents because we'll actually show, multiple houses of his or hers, whichever it was. But basically, we would do that, and it just irritates everybody. And as even as a loan officer, you have to,
I get the call.
Consume your time, and then you have to write so many different offers. And thank God it isn't common, so I'm glad it's not.
Well, it could get common, and that's why I feel like getting in front of stuff like this, having this platform, and really, it's cliche to say, but it is really all about the education, right? So buyers, when you see a home, look at it obviously as far as a listing price, but before you get all hot and bothered about it, reach out to your agent and say, hey, is this thing priced appropriately, right? Because it could be in the other direction. We know that there's people that are just out to lunch that are way over asking as far as their property is concerned.
I'll touch on that. So in this exact scenario, we took the comps of the area currently within the last 90 to 180 days, see what sold prices were above ask or where they were just comping at. I then ran comps from 2018 to 2020 in the exact same neighborhood within a quarter mile around the property, and then expanded to the entire subdivision. And figured out how, in the craziest real estate market we've ever seen between that time period of 2018 to 2020, what was the average over market percentage for the closed price? We came out to about 5.3%, which is absurd. So then we went into the scenario, okay, so if we're at 5.3%, we're probably not a market that's quite as crazy as that. We're still January, it's not going to be as crazy. We end up being 5.2% over list price. So I'm like, damn, I feel pretty good about this offer. Then I find out the next day, oh yeah, you lost by $400,000, and you're like, oh God.
I had a real estate agent tell me in certain European countries they don't list, like list prices for their homes. You just list if your home is for sale, and then it's your buyer's agent's responsibility to find homes that they feel are within, comparable sales. And then when you write an offer just like, hey, 123 Main Street, I own it. Who wants to buy it?
Yep.
Right.
How cool would that be?
I think it makes so much more sense. But it doesn't drive as much traffic and generate leads for listing agents. So I don't know if it's something.
I don't know. Maybe it might, because there'd be inquiries understanding what's this property listed at, and you're just getting a call, just ask the price. But now you're getting all these different phone calls.
Well, they're not going to tell you what it's listed at. What it's listed at is make me an offer.
Fair point. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Fair point.
This is why you need a real estate agent.
Right. Exactly. So you can't just call the listing agent and say, hey, I want to buy this house, the listing agent would say, write it up.
What do you do on a for sale by owner? I mean, you drive by the property, you're a consumer going, ooh, I like this house. It's so pretty. It's for sale by owner. Let me call the owner. You walk into the home, you look at it, you like it, and you're like, hey, honey, let's make an offer. How do you know what the real value is?
Yeah.
I guess you get lucky and you find a loan officer like you and like, hey, I want to do a loan, and then they're going to the appraised value. But how much time and
Well, how did you write the contract?
true, very true,
I have
Matt.
so I have a client right now that we did a purchase for a year and a half ago, and I, as a lender, as long as I'm not receiving a commission, we can work up the contract and everything. So we wrote
Nice.
this up as a FSBO, and he ended up getting transferred for his job to Colorado. He's renting a place out in Colorado right now because when he purchased this property, he was so convinced that he was getting a good deal. He was dealing directly with the seller, and this was the way to do things because real estate agents are overpaid, all that kind of stuff. His house is like way underwater, and he cannot sell this property, and he's owned it for like almost 2 years. And it's kind of a shame. It's an old friend of mine, and it's just one of those situations where you just can't explain anything to anybody because they already know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know
So
those.
yeah. But switching gears real quick, I want to get back to the multiple offer thing because this is one thing I'm excited about. This is kind of where I shine on the lending side of things because lately I feel like it's just been what's your rate, what's your closing costs. We see no value in anything you do. I've been a commodity. And one of the reasons that I've been successful in this business, especially on the purchase side of things, is identifying how important it is to have the lender involved in the negotiating process. And, because no matter what, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have a buyer, you, of course, are saying, yeah, the buyer's pre-approved, they're good to go. And your buyers, I mean, they're always, they could probably buy the house in cash. They just want to keep the money in the market, right?
Yeah.
And
That's what they say.
Right, exactly. And as a listing agent, you hear that all the time. So when the lender's reaching out, putting their reputation on the line, they're local. I think that's also really important.
Huge.
They're kind of getting a feel for what's important to the sellers. We've just been very successful in accomplishing what is most important, which is getting the offer accepted, right? Because as a buyer, you don't need a loan if you can't get your offer accepted, and you're not getting a home no matter what you think, no matter how much money or whatever it is. If the sellers don't accept your offer, you're not getting that home. And so now hearing that we're getting back into multiple offers excites me because this is where I have just been successful with real estate agents in the past. We really push these buyers to do all the things. We try to put buyers in a position to write 0 days for financing contingencies, which is huge. For those of you that don't know what that means that the loan's underwritten. The only thing we need is an appraisal and title. That's it. We close it in 10 days if it's enticing to the seller.
Pending HOA.
What's that? Yeah.
Pending HOA.
Right, pending HOA. But from a financial standpoint, everything's in order, and listing agents and sellers love it because what I've identified more than anything in real estate is what a seller really wants is as close to a guarantee as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not the highest offer.
And we have not had guarantees on offers over the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's been a different market. So to your point, when we kick this off, you're like, you've got to always be ever shifting in the market, or you're going to die, and that really is the way that it is. And I'm excited about the shift for buyers to feel more confident. Because here's a fun fact: I monitor the market like crazy, and we've seen volatility since March of 2022. So I mean, it's been well over a year. We're approaching 2 years of like mortgage rate volatility. I just noticed this yesterday. It was December 15th to now, although not as exciting as rates going down. For 30 straight days, we really saw very little to almost no change
Yeah.
in the rate. And I said this almost 2 years ago, I said, what is really going to turn this market is not interest rates going up or down. It's going to be interest rates staying consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, going back to a buyer, is kind of what makes a buyer feel more comfortable, is less volatility.
Here's what the expectations are now.
Yeah.
Basically with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you an analogy, I think, is you're going to go talk sports at the end. So let me just bring this up now. So let's talk about the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, great coach. You both agree, great coach, right?
Oh yeah, I
One of the
mean,
greatest coach ever.
or was Tom Brady the best quarterback
That's
ever?
where I'm going. I like it. He chiseled right into it already. So with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, do you feel like it was a duo that nobody could touch?
No, it was Matt Patricia.
What I was going with this is when you have a great real estate agent and you have a great loan officer working together
Yeah.
as a consumer, I don't think they put as much emphasis on that as possible. But when you have two Matts that work together that can crush it, you're unstoppable. I mean, you get them from both angles. You make sure the financing is in line. You make sure, whatever program they need to fit their needs, and you're there to do the refinance afterwards, and you're local. Come on, Matt. I mean, I've dealt with so many different, I can't use names. I'm going to just big companies that are national companies. My consumer will ask me to do that, and I'll say, no. Let's talk about this. And I say, here's the challenges that we're going to have or we've had in the past with my experience. But dealing with somebody local, you get that service that you need, and it's not just about getting the best rate. I mean, everybody thinks the best rate is all it's about. It's not. It's about knowing all programs. It's almost like
you want to have a good experience too. I mean, buying a home shouldn't be.
It should be horrible. It's emotion. It's one of the biggest second biggest emotional roller coaster you go through your life behind marriage.
But in my opinion, when you lose Tom Brady, what happened to the Patriots?
Or was it Rob Gronkowski?
Tom Brady still out to throw the ball.
That's true. That's true.
Tampa Bay right afterwards, Super Bowl. I get you. And I wasn't going to bring that up, but that's a one-off. But if you're that good of a real estate agent, maybe you could do it without a loan officer. No, you can't. I can't even say that.
No, we talk about this a lot. I mean, it's not, we bring in insurance agents into the transaction. As a lender, an insurance agent can really jam me up. I mean, we can't send out closing disclosures without correct insurance information. And again, to your point, I don't want to throw out any big company names, but there's one that's very inexpensive, and they only deal through fax, they only deal through online customer service and everything along those lines. And my processor will be waiting for, this insurance company to send over an updated binder, and it's like, if we don't get this today, we're not going to close on time, and there's nothing that the client can even do because there's no one to talk to.
The horror story for me was we had the exact situation happen. Big lender, a national lender came in, gave us the pre-approval letter, wrote the offer, passed third-party financing, no outs. There was no more outs for this client. And lender came back and said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do this loan. And I tried to call him numerous times to find out why, and I got his voicemail. Left voicemail. The consumer at that point in time put it all back on the real estate agent. So as a consumer, I think the more education we can give them on this podcast and just giving them the real truth of what the truth is, because we have no skin in the game here. We're just giving you the game plans. We're just telling you the play-by-play, what's going to get you to the end zone, and this will get you to the end zone the fastest way. You two together make a huge team, and effectively. And I know, Matt, after talking to you, you have more experience than a lot of the loan officers I've talked to locally, so I'm very impressed.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's just, comes with time. That's all it is. I'm getting old.
I've done this 25 years, so that's a big compliment of the experience and knowledge you have. So, and it's not because you brought me this podcast.
No, I appreciate it.
You really have the experience and knowledge that I'm very impressed with. So,
I think that one of the things that I run into on a regular basis, to your point about having the experience and everything, is the person who I feel like gets kind of burned the most from not doing what we talk about is the person that in other aspects of their life kind of have like a, if I want it, I buy it mentality, right? I've always said first-time home buyers are my favorite clients because they come in with a lot of questions. They don't know what they're doing. They're willing to admit it. And, we typically have a good process because they listen and they want things to go well. The people that I see that are writing multiple offers and are doing all of the things that you hear these horror stories about is, I'm half joking, is the guy who says, oh, I could buy this house in cash, but I want to keep it in the market. He finds a place. He thinks in his mind, I don't need to be pre-approved. Let me tell you about my 800 credit score. Let me tell you about my W-2 job where I make $500,000. Look, nobody cares. It's like the car industry. There's this guy I follow on TikTok who does all these memes about cars and everything. And the guy comes in literally with a briefcase and he's like, I want to buy that Escalade out there, cash. I want it for this price. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to do it. He's like, but I have cash. And it's like,
we don't care.
We don't care. The financial money, it's all going to get wired.
We had one yesterday. I told this my cash client, I was trying to get somewhere off this price. And I was like, don't worry, we have cash. We'll close in 2 weeks. It'll be very good. He goes, Jason, I'll take a loan and I'll take a full price offer over your cash deal. Your cash doesn't mean anything to
Yeah,
my consumer because they're going to get paid either which way you look at it.
right.
So to your point,
Yeah, and I think that, it's the well-to-do client with the 800 credit score, with that rocket mortgage approval that he just got online. He didn't talk to a human being because why should he have to do that? Those are the people that we're seeing losing out on these offers. And, that's been one of the pitches that I've given to a lot of these clients because they call me right after they lose that offer. They're like, they think I'm like a magician. Like I put some voodoo spell on them. I'm like, you're gonna find a home, you're gonna love it, you're gonna write an offer on it. It's gonna be a competitive offer too, and they're gonna go with someone else. And they're like, no chance. I'm the man. I work for this, insert big tech company in Austin. I'm like, okay, call me when you don't get that home and your heart's broken. But nobody believes you.
that's crazy. It's the game plan. If you, as a consumer, and I'll say this, blue in the face, if you don't have a game plan and you don't have the right real estate agent, you don't have your team behind you, you will not win. I don't care what anybody says, and you better have some experience behind you because if you don't, with you two's experience, you'd kill it. I mean, in a New York second. But if you don't, you're in trouble.
Well, and to your point, having a game plan, I love that you said that because I can't tell you how many times I'll see inexperienced real estate agents have a buyer where it'll be like that Round Rock home you made mention of or that other property that's listed intentionally under kind of like, going price. And the buyer is basically looking at something online and saying, oh, this is listed at 400. And they go, let's write it 375. It's like, where did you come up with that? Like, I'm dying to know. And in their mind, and it's not okay. They don't
25K below list. What are you talking about?
They don't do
It's
this.
the market. You're supposed to be able to do that today.
Right. They don't know any better. And they're like, well, if it's listed at 400, I'm certainly not going to make an offer at ask. It's like, this house is going to sell for 5. Right. And so not to like go down that rabbit hole, but I just want to, harp on your point. Like that is also part of a strategy that you have to have with a real estate agent because you're making an offer on someone's house where they like raised kids, had Thanksgiving, did home improvements. Like people, people want to say things like, oh, it's just business. Like, yeah, but not when it's your house, like.
To that point, the consumer reached out to me in 2018. She bought a home. She wanted to buy another one. I told her, she's like, let's do an investment property. I'm ready, Jason. I was like, let's go. Great opportunities. Let's look at them. So we went to that rigmarole, did not write anything, reached back out to me about 4 months ago. And she said, Jason, I'm ready. I was like, well, if we'd have done it in 2018, you'd have had some good equity in your home.
Heck yeah.
Easy. And now we found another one and great opportunity. Almost cash flowed, believe it or not, as a consumer. $100,000 down, but cash flowed. And long story short, she had every reason not to buy this one again.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to really educate these consumers and just give them that path. And you've got to trust and believe in your team. If you're not, just don't buy. Don't call.
Yeah.
I'll share my investment spreadsheet with you.
Yeah.
That helps.
I'm a believer that, again, having the longevity in the business, dealing with kind of like you said, clients in 18, 19, like I've really, and this is somewhat new. This is like my new thing that I've identified in the last few years is I really dug a little bit deeper with clients like that to really figure out what the true reason is as to why they're not buying. Because let's face it, in 18, 19, it was probably because property values were going up and the market was going to crash. And then in 19 and 20 was like, people are crazy. I'm not making offers over ask. And then 21, 22 was, oh, rates are too high. And there's always a reason not to buy. And what I've kind of identified and it's easier for me than it would be for a real estate agent because I get to see kind of the guts, the money and everything. It truly all comes down to lifestyle.
Yes.
So like James and I had a client who I had a great conversation with. And without going into like full details, he lives in a place in a very sought after part of town, basically almost downtown. He lives with 3 other guys, so there's 4 of them in the house. His rent's like $600, but they're in like an $850,000 home if they owned it, right? So like all they got to do is just hop in an Uber, and 3 minutes later you're on West 6th Street, and there's 4 dudes in there and everything along those lines. This guy makes way more than enough money to purchase a property, and after going through everything, said to him, why didn't you buy in 2020? Like, what? Like, how'd you fuck that up? Right? Right?
Yeah, right.
And he was like, well, I felt like property values were a little overinflated. And I said, okay, well, what's stopping you from buying now? He's like, well, I feel like rates are too high. And I called him out. And I said, you know what I think it is? I said, I was you at one point in time. You live in such a nice area. You know that you can't afford to buy a house in that area. You're going to have to move a little bit further out from where you are currently. It's going to mess with your lifestyle. And you're like, $9,000 or $1,000 monthly rent's going to go to like $3,000. But as far as like, if we're talking about financial future, wealth, savings, all of that, you know what the right thing is to do. You just don't want to give up bottle service on West 6th once a week.
Exactly.
And the dude was like, fuck. Even he didn't know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when someone's like, shit, they're not like, oh shit, this guy's got me figured out. They're like, shit, I didn't even think of that, but he's right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And back to your lady or whoever it is, that's what I've been getting a little bit better at, is at least getting people to identify, like, look, it's not the rates.
I know who that was, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, it's not the rates. It's not the market. It's not this. It's not that. It's you don't want to give up the lifestyle that you currently have, because there's no way for you to purchase a house, 3 minutes from downtown with a $1,000 monthly payment. It's not, like, I want a Mercedes Benz for the cost of a Kia. Like, it's just things don't work that way.
It does if it doesn't run.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is experience and knowledge. That's it. It goes back to the same thing. When you have experience and knowledge, you can professionally tell somebody, hey, listen, we need to really talk. And
Yeah.
you can give them the heart-to-heart talk, because if you can do that, you just got them over that edge. All the consumers that's purchased homes since 2008 from me, how much money have they made?
Oh, yeah.
I have one consumer that he calculated out. He goes, you made me over $3 million, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because he just followed the lead. So, I mean, it goes back to that same thing. And this is a big thing for me is having the right team. And that's a big thing for me to the consumers, is having the right team. And if you don't think I'm the right person, then go find that person. Find that person. Not everybody's going to like Jason Randall.
Well, this person's still not going to buy. He wants to maintain his lifestyle, but at least we know where we stand, because the story I gave him was when I purchased my first home. This is a very long time ago, so the numbers I'm going to use, people are going to be like, when was this? This would have been in like 2007. I wanted to keep my mortgage payment under $1,000 a month. That's what I needed to do.
Not realistic now. Just saying
Right. I probably could have afforded anywhere between a $1,200 to $1,500 monthly payment, but I convinced myself that this is where I wanted to be, and I use this term from time to time. I didn't want to be house poor, is what I told myself, but I could have easily afforded it. And you know what I did with that extra $200 to maybe $500 a month that I didn't, spend on my mortgage to buy a nicer home that would have had higher appreciation, so on and so forth? I spent it on dinners, booze, and women.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like nothing. I mean, sure, maybe we could talk about the experience, the lifestyle.
Yep.
Right?
the memories that might not exist.
But like, I didn't park that into some high interest savings or, anything along those lines.
There's
and
no equity in memories, just for the record. There's
Right.
no equity there
But
that I know of, unless you two can teach me that one.
But again, I mean, this is something that I've been getting a lot deeper on with my clients, because it's not only for me, it's for them, but it is mainly for me, so that when I'm like, look, I get it, you're not ready, and it's not because of the market or these things. It's not you. It's not me, it's you.
100%.
Right? It's not the market, it's not this, it's you. So
These people on the fence, it just blows my mind with everything that Austin offers. And if you just reverse time to 2 years ago, how many people were in line, Matt, to get into those doors? How long did you wait? What was your longest time you had to wait to get into one of those homes in 2000?
Cedar Park, off of Main Street. I was 22nd in line.
I said 2020. How long?
22nd in line.
22nd in line.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
That was for an open house that was full, and there was COVID stuff going on.
I waited 45 minutes to get into one home in Round Rock that was priced at $325.
You had to be out in like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
yeah.
and there was the listing agent sat at the front door, like in the foyer, and was like cycling people out. And I was like, "This is something new. I haven't seen this one yet."
So let's go today. Now nobody's looking at those homes.
Right.
Well,
Let me rephrase that.
investors are.
Investors are,
Yeah.
but the primary consumers are not. So my concern is, why not, Matt? I mean, if you really look at time right now, even if, let's talk about interest rates. Let's say you get 6.5, 7.
Well, it's deeper than that. I can tell you exactly why. The main reason is because the majority of your buyers currently are, potential buyers, that is, are move-up buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if
Equity
you,
plays.
and this is what, this was the other topic that we wanted to touch on, is like, buying before you sell and,
Mhm.
doing all of that, because this is what I think is going to create, right now we have really there's only two types of buyers in this current market, which is first-time home buyers and investors, right? It's not very, but it's unusual to see somebody who's trying to, get rid of their current property with that 2.5% interest rate and buy another property.
You can add one in there. The long-time boomer with a ton of equity.
Yeah,
That might be doing a family. That might be doing a family play.
That's true. That's true. So that group of individuals, which I wish I would have done a little bit of research. I'm sure there's a percentage we could cover. How many people currently own a home that want to buy another home but are on the fence?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a debate, right? Like that is one. We've talked about this. If you don't own a home, like it's very difficult for you to come to me and explain to me why you aren't buying. There's only two reasons. It's I either live rent-free with my parents or some sort of family or friend, or I just literally cannot afford. Outside of that, there is no reason why if you own a home that you shouldn't be purchasing. And we can go into that. But if you own a home,
I agree.
If you own a home and you're like, I would love to get another home, it is debatable on like, do I buy now? Should I wait? Should I do this? Should I do that?
Yeah.
And that's a deeper conversation, right? And just for the record, before I move forward on this one, use this in your sales pitch because it has been working for me. When you talk to a buyer, even if it's through like a lead or anything along those lines, and you're like, hey, are you a first-time home buyer? If they've never bought a home before, I literally want you to ask them, why didn't you purchase in 2020?
Good one.
Oh, it hits. Like it just fucking crushes them like every time.
Wow.
And unless they're 20 years old and they're like, I wasn't old enough to buy a house.
I was in high school.
Right. I was in high
didn't
school.
have 2-year job time.
Which is very unusual, right? Like it really gets people going. They're like, man, I really wish I would have. And, I kind of go down that conversation like, well, why didn't you? It works. Anyway, so I think as we're seeing interest rates kind of come down a little bit, you're going to, or even like we talked about, be less volatile, right? You're going to start to see people who are those move-up buyers that are going to be more interested in purchasing, and that group of people, once they come off the fence or they're into the marketplace, that's when things are going to get crazy again, regardless of what interest rates are.
My last 2 consumers that I've dealt with, one of them has a mortgage, bought a house from me in 2018.
Okay.
Great equity.
Yep.
I talked to him the other day, and I was like, hey, he's like, I want to purchase closer to my job in Round Rock. We want to sell in Cedar Park. I was like, great, we can do this. I ran the comps, and I was like, but let me ask you a question. Why don't we hold on to this home? Why don't we lease this home for the next 2 years, until the market rebounds so you can double down? He goes, well, how easy is that to do that? I said, super easy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have the appetite.
Yeah, but the next question, exactly. So the next question out of my mouth, Matt, was how much do you have in reserves? Because if you don't have enough in reserves, it is best to sell your home because, do you want to take that risk? Because most people can't appetite that.
Right.
But when he told me he had the money for that, it just made a very seamless process.
Sure.
And he goes, Jason, this is why I use you every time because you're not looking at it from a dollar standpoint. Because what do we really make on a lease, Matt? Is it a lot of money?
A few $100.
A few $100. But what I'm doing is best for the consumer because if he waits 2-3 years, market rebounds just like we talked about. I mean, that's a lot of money he'd leave on the table. So I think that's the last 2 consumers, Matt, that actually have come to the exact same situation. One owns their house free and clear. But again, I said, do you want to hold off on this and rent this out? And he's like, yes, I'd rather do that. So everybody's appetite's different.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and it goes back to that lifestyle thing too. I see people who literally, we can put together a spreadsheet and show them how hanging on to the original property and, looking at future appreciation and everything along those lines. But they're like, I don't even want to mess with it.
Yeah.
I don't even want to mess with it. And it's just interesting because, again, it is a lifestyle thing because if it really was all about, the profitability and everything for the buyer and seller, I mean, everybody would hang on to their property.
My father is a prime example. Sorry, Dad. He leased this house out in the early 90s, early 80s, whatever it was, and the guy just destroyed his property.
Yeah,
and he's
just got a terrible taste in his mouth about it.
But he didn't use a real estate agent.
Right.
Two things we don't do. Didn't use a real estate agent, and then he went to a friend and let the friend lease it.
Yeah.
So 2 things you don't do. Am I right, Matt? Are those the 2 double-edged swords?
Is it still a friend?
No, God, no.
No. Great question, though, but no.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leverage this conversation kind of where we are already going to go. Let's go talk about the buy before you sell or the sell before you buy or the recast scenarios.
Yeah.
And kind of just explain so everyone kind of has a better idea what that actually means, what the cost goes into a buy before you sell programs, why it might seem like a benefit but may actually cost more money, and what's actually the best investment scenario for someone in this scenario?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, to keep it simple, I mean, you've got 3 different options, and all of them, there's the seesaw effect between time and money, right? Money can be time, time is money. We all know the phrases, and so, the ideal scenario is, in my opinion, to try to end up right in the middle, right, where it's not costing a ton of money, but it's also not taking a ton of time. We're seeing a lot of companies that are pitching these buy before you sell programs, which sound really good as long as I don't get into the costs that are associated with it, and I just say, hey, buy before you sell. We'll go ahead and we'll write you a check in cash for your new home, and then we'll figure everything out with your other home on the back end. Well, without going into like exact dollar figures, that is bar none the most expensive way for you to sell and buy your home.
Can we give examples?
Yeah, I mean,
Let's say the home value is $500,000. What's the cash value that you're going to get them?
yeah, so typically you're going to see offers being made on your property anywhere between like 10 to 15% below market. I mean, we are not going to pay top dollar for your property and run the risk of potentially, having to hold that property for any longer than necessary. So right off the bat, you're taking a haircut on the equity that you're going to receive on that property. And then from the cash side of things, when they're going and, writing a check for you on your new property, there's a convenience fee that typically runs anywhere between 3 to 5%, depending on how much you're financing. So all in, it's safe to say, I mean, if you have a $500,000 property, there's a strong possibility that you're gonna end up paying anywhere between $50,000 to $65,000, all losing, if you will, losing. I mean, it's not like you're paying it, right? But you're losing that equity.
The equity you could have had,
right?
But on the flip side, just for the picture view, you never had the money; it was equity.
And that's how some people feel about it, right? It's
Exactly.
monopoly money, right? They're like, well, I mean, I could sell my house for this and walk away with that extra $65K, but it's not like I'm stroking a check out of my retirement account.
No showings. I mean, no showings. Who was the big real estate company that did that nationwide for the last 5 years and just built their company off it? I'll say it.
It was
Open door.
yeah.
Open door.
Door open, open door.
Door open. Open door. And the problem is, in my personal opinion, is that there was no clear picture to what the consumer really could do.
That's what I think.
It goes back to the exact same thing I said. You have to have the right team. And
educate, yeah.
Yeah, and if you walk into buying anything and you don't do your research or education, do any kind of research at all on it, what's going to happen? You're going to get stung.
Yeah, you're going to lose $65K. I mean, your average home price right now is in the mid 400s.
$435.
Right. So I mean, you're talking about losing $50,000 to $60,000 for a convenience. And again, if you've got $50,000 to $60,000 just to throw away, I get it. Like, it's your money. It's just not best practices. So that's the first way to buy before you sell.
Before you go there, that's about 3 to 4 years of appreciation. You wasted 3 to 4 years on that money.
Yeah. I mean, look, people buy things all the time that that seem like a waste of money. It's your money. Do what you want. But that's the most expensive way to buy before you sell. Keep in mind that when you do this, I mean, you have to show that you can qualify for both of the properties, whether it's, future rent on the property that you're leaving, that it can at least wash out your payment, and that you can afford the new one. I mean, we can't put anybody in a position where, God forbid, something happens where, we got to know you can make the payments, right? So then you've got the second one, which is my favorite, and it's a recast. And what it basically does is it allows you to purchase your new home, and you're putting, very little money down. Keep in mind, I forgot about this. The Buy Before You Sell program requires that you do have 5% in reserves somewhere. So anybody who says, I can't buy without selling my property because I literally have zero savings,
You can't qualify.
we'll cover that one in the third option. So in the middle option, the one that is my favorite, this allows you to buy a property with, as little as 5% down. You'll be able to purchase that new property, and then you can go ahead and move into it, and we will list your other property. And when that home sells, you do have 1 year to do what's called a recast. You can reach out, and we will go ahead and restructure the loan now based on the new balance. So for those of you that don't understand how a mortgage amortizes, your monthly payment is based on the original amount that you borrow. If you keep putting additional money towards your payments, yes, it will go towards the principal, but it will not reduce your monthly payment. You're going to be stuck with that same monthly payment. On a recast, as long as you do this within the first year, there's a very small fee, under $500, that will allow you to restructure it's not a refinance. Title doesn't have to be done. Your rate's not going to change. You can restructure it, and they will base the new payment on the new balance that you owe. So your payment will drop. If it's under 80%, your PMI is going to come off. It does have to be done within the first year. It also has to be a minimum of a $20,000, because I have run into that. One of our buyers is like, oh, when I sell, I'm going to pay off my credit cards and I'm going to make a $5,000 recast.
I know it is.
No, you're not.
No,
It
you're
needs
not.
to be at least 20 grand. For most people, that's easy. You know, they're like, I stand to make $100,000 on this property. You know, and that's a huge chunk of change that's going to drastically reduce your payment on a recast as long as it's done in the first year. That's the second way, and in my opinion, like I said, kind of staying in the middle, where you're talking about a cost under $500 to accomplish that. The last way to do this is either with a bridge loan or with a home sale contingency.
Yeah.
And that's a dirty word, right? Home sale contingency.
Especially in the market we're going into.
Right.
You could do. I've done contingency the last about year and a half.
Mhm.
No more.
And what that means for those out there that are wondering what it is, it's when you write an offer on your new home and say, hey, I want to buy your house, but I can't buy it until my home sells. And we'll typically do a simultaneous closing where, you know, we're going to go ahead and close everybody on the same day. Funds will transfer between buyers and sellers all on the same day. But sellers get weary about that because they could be sitting around waiting for your home to sell because they don't know what it's listed at. They don't know the condition of your property or anything along those lines. Meanwhile, there's other buyers out there that are banging on their door saying, hey, I'll buy it and I don't need a home sale contingency.
Mm-hmm.
So the recast has really been the option that I find is the best fit. And one of the other things I'm seeing a lot of right now, and this is a great topic we haven't talked about on the podcast yet, and we're approaching 80 episodes for the record.
Wow.
I know. And it reminds me of a client that we have.
Do you know, real quick before you pass that, do you know the number for successful podcasts versus non-successful podcasts and how many episodes it is?
I believe it's 60.
20.
20.
You've way exceeded it.
Look at that.
You're in the top 5% of podcasts over 20.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well, we're not stopping. We've accumulated a great following, and those of you that have been on the podcast, I'm going to start trolling you because my podcast is my CRM for real estate agents. You start going to see your clips come up, and I'm going to say, hey, where the heck are you? Why haven't you gotten in the gym? I call it like the gym. You can't just do this once. It doesn't work. But going back to what I was talking about is that there was a statistic that's been thrown out almost for a year now, is that we are currently, as a nation, in the highest amount of credit card debt that we've seen in the history of credit cards. Now, a lot of that is because of inflation and so on and so
Over
forth.
a trillion is what they say. Over a trillion.
Mm-hmm. But the moral of the story is a lot of people have a lot of debt, but they also have a lot of equity. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I haven't really thought this through, I'm doing it live right here, is why not, as real estate professionals, why are we not pitching the idea to the move-up buyer, which is the buyer that, in my opinion, is somewhat slowing down this market? Why are we not pitching to that buyer, hey, listen, you have $100,000, just debatably, in your property right now, but you're also carrying like $35,000 in credit card debt.
With an interest rate at the highest I've ever
Like
seen.
29.99,
Yeah.
right? Why not, as a sales tactic, say, hey, I know you want to move up. I know you want to get a new home, but you've got some concerns about the volatility. But let's look at the big picture, kind of like what you did with your client on the rental side of things. You didn't want to just, sell his house and buy it. You said, hey, what if we keep it? What if we do it this way? You were educating that buyer/seller. What if we were to do that to homeowners and say, hey, you're considering buying, you have a home to sell, like, I don't know how we do this tastefully, but say, like, are you carrying any kind of debt outside of car loans and things like that?
Mhm.
Because now might be a good time for you to sell this house, go debt-free, buy your move-up house, and although the payment might be higher than your current mortgage, what's your current payment on $35,000 worth of credit cards right now,
Oh, yeah.
right?
It would be an eye-opener.
So here you're paying $2,000 a month on your home today, but you're also paying like $2,000 a month on your credit cards. You're paying $4,000 a month between your mortgage and your credit cards. We could sell your home, make you debt-free, buy the home you want, and put you at a $3,800 payment. Now, I'm not a mathematician.
And build the debt into the cash to close.
And pay one extra payment a year.
Right.
Wow, save them how much in interest alone?
Exactly. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but I think we just accomplished everything you wanted and saved you $200 a month on your overall monthly expenses. Now cut up your credit cards.
Boom.
But see, and that's where it goes back to that experience and knowledge, because what you're doing is you're sitting down with the consumer and you're helping. You and Matt are sitting down saying, let's talk about what we're doing here. Let's not just apply, let me get you a pre-qual and let's go buy a home. You're actually saying, hey, let's analyze it. Let's look at everything. Matt sitting down saying, hey, let's look at exactly the best approach for what we're trying to accomplish here. And you together come up with a team, and there's nobody that can touch that.
Well, and you're going to see a lot of people are talking about when interest rates come down, I'm going to refinance. And don't get me wrong, if you love your home and you intend to refinance when rates get lower and you're going to take cash out and pay off your credit cards, because there's a lot of people that talk shit. We've gotten popular enough that there's a lot of mean comments, and what everyone's going to do is be like, oh, yeah, use your house as an ATM. That's the way to do it. You know, that's how 2008 happened. It's like, well, you know, what's the plan? Bankruptcy? Like, most of these clients that I see, they're not like 1099 self-employed business owners. They're W-2'd people. So what are you going to get? Like a 5% raise next year? Like, literally, what the heck is your plan?
Yep.
You have $35,000 worth of credit cards. You're a W-2'd employee. Even if you get a 5% raise, what are you going to just now start buckling down and pay this off in 9 years? No. So you're either going to refinance your house, or you're going to have to go the route that I say, or you're just going to continue to just pay on 29.99% forever until you maybe get a new job or whatever. And so I just wanted to make sure I gave that disclaimer, because people are like, oh my God, you're going to sell your house to pay off your debt. People refinance to pay off their debt all the time. Nobody bats an eye, right? Why not kill two birds with one stone with the client that, again, I'm not trying to make anybody move to pay off their debt, but if in the back of your mind you're like, wait a second, there's a way for me to get into a nicer home that I've really been planning on getting into while paying off my debt with the, you know, the equity that I've accumulated, yes, you need to contact these gentlemen. They'll tell you all about it.
And I'm going to refer you to Dave Ramsey.
Right.
Okay, not to change topics on a personal level.
Yeah.
This goes back to the same car conversation we had.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, give you a scenario, give you a little insight on what's going on with my car scenario in personal life. Made a bad decision to buy an Audi S6. Okay.
Because of the car, because of the financing?
Because of the car.
Oh, okay.
Of the depreciation scale of how fast it was.
Got it. Just didn't want Audi to.
No, that's okay. So, anyways, to give you backstory of why I bought the car, my wife unfortunately got in a little wreck in my primary car, which is a Tahoe. They told us with the basically labor and parts getting it there, it's going to take about 9 to 12 months to repair this car. I go for about 4.5 months with a rental car, and I said, "F this! I'm done with this. I'm just buying a car, and we'll sell it as soon as we get the other car back." Well, I buy the Audi, and I'm a little bitch when it comes to cars. I like a nice car, and got the Audi S6. Well, you know what? 2 weeks later, my fucking truck was done, and now I'm like, crap. Okay, this was supposed to be planned for a way different scenario. So now I'm sitting there with a Ford Expedition, my wife. I have a Chevy Tahoe, and I have an Audi, and all these are on limited mile leases. And not to get too detailed, but I got over $4,000 a month in cars,
right,
on payments. So then Matt and I had this little conversation. I'm like, Matt, I know it's a bad decision if I'm burying my debt into another vehicle and have a high LTV. But if I go off as this unlimited mile lease and I go to a 2.9% interest rate and I purchase a car, pay off, let's call it one vehicle in full compared to the trade-in value, it's going to take about $10,000 to $15,000. But then my payment's now reducing by over $1,600 per month.
It's a lot of money.
How fast am I going to catch up on the $1,600 compared to the $10,000 to $15,000? And that asset's it's a depreciating asset, and it's not going to do any better. So getting myself out of the hole as fast as I possibly can is going to be my best case scenario. Walking through with my accountant-minded wife,
right?
It was a little difficult. She's there now, and now it's okay. When's the right time? And we did just have our first kiddo, so
congratulations!
Congratulations, beautiful baby.
Thank you. So that's a little on pause, but that's still in the cycle. But in the same mindset, if someone wants to relate with a car scenario, or unfortunately cars are depreciating, homes are going to be appreciating.
Yep.
But it's the same idea of if you have these debts that keep putting you back, but there's an exit strategy of, I can actually get what I want if I sell this, this, and this, and I get the dream one over here just because I'm making my payment in a better scenario. Why not?
I used to run into this a lot with, doing refinance business, and it's very interesting the way that people compartmentalize their debt. right? There's like 3 forms of debt to the people. And at the end of the day, it's all expenses. And the idea is to keep your expenses as low as possible by keeping your interest rates as low as possible. So the 3 expenses that people compartmentalize is their bills in respect to like utilities, things that aren't on credit. And then you've got things that are revolving accounts, you know, credit cards, all of those types of things. And then you've got installment loans, which is like car loans, personal loans, and mortgages. And it's very interesting. The mortgage one really seems to be the one that, you know, taking equity out of your property, people are typically always like, oh, I want to take out like an equity line, for example. Like, I want to take out a $35,000 equity line. And without going into a bunch of details, you're going to take a higher rate. That mortgage is on second lien position, so on and so forth. And usually it doesn't work out as well as it could if you were to just refinance your first mortgage and deal with all of it. But people just don't want to touch that first mortgage. It's like in their mind, like it's different than all of this other debt, right? It's not the same because all of the other debt, I think what it boils down to is it's kind of this dreamer mentality, kind of like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. It's like, how are you going to do that? It's like, well, I don't know, but it's not going to be with diet and exercise. I'll tell you that. Like,
Right. What else is there?
Right. Oh, well, there's
You're gonna take the pill.
There's there's
Or a shot.
Ozempic, or there's something,
What's
you know.
the new one with?
I know you take the shot and
Yeah.
you just stop eating. I've heard about it. You just stop eating.
So you just basically turn into anorexic.
you just don't eat. Your body doesn't want to eat. I don't know how healthy that is, but it just doesn't sound very good. Just my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
But I see a lot of that, and it's like you need to stop compartmentalizing your debt as if it's different. It's all debt, and the goal is to get it as low as possible by reducing the interest that you're paying on that debt as much as possible. So I know it hurts sometimes to consolidate, you know, like $35,000 into your mortgage. You're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But it's like you're paying 30% on $35,000. Like, we can drastically reduce that number. And then what's interesting to me is what I try to do is I'm like, look, you're currently paying like $4,000 a month. If we're able to reduce those expenses, take that savings and start either saving it or reapplying it towards your mortgage, pay your home off faster and things like that. But just like 25-year-old me, most people end up taking that 1,000, you know, or whatever the savings is, they spend it on booze, alcohol, and dinners.
100%.
You know, so that's one of the other things that's always just very, very interesting. It's like we've got you where you need to be. Like, here's the plan, but lifestyle, man, it's a killer.
I kind of have the same situation with my Tesla. I bought this Tesla. So excited about it because, I mean, the amount of miles I put on my car, it's just,
Yeah.
it makes so much sense. It's just,
That's why I have a higher interest rate on my cars. I have limited mile leases.
So I basically bought this car, and then what, 2 years ago, about a year, Elon says, hey, we're going to drop all the prices on all the Teslas. So I got buried a little bit in my Tesla too. So I'm not very pleased about that, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're
It's got-
fun, though. They're nice.
Yeah, my wife says it's like a spaceship.
So while we're talking about the payment scenario, I think we'll come up on time, but I want to go into the home app.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a new company, startup by the name of Home, HOM. Basically, what they do, it's a lifetime engagement app. If you want access to this app after I explain it, feel free to reach out to me. I can get you onboarded with us and kind of go from that direction. But basically, what it does, instead of shopping homes on a sales price per scenario, you're actually shopping on your total cost of ownership. Currently, the app is built out to have a 20% down conventional loan, builds out with your PITI, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and then also partners up with utility companies in the area so you have a full understanding of your costs coming out of your account per month to live at that home. We're not talking about Netflix. We're not talking about Hulu. Just what it costs for that house to function.
Sure.
And it changes complete way that you shop on a home. So you can actually, without having to, yes, you still need to partner up with a real estate agent and still need to partner up with Matt or a lender or whatever in that scenario. But you sitting on the couch understanding, okay, what's it actually cost to live this house? And you're scrolling through. Okay, that one's 5.5. Okay, what's this one? 6.8 thousand. Okay. You know, I really want to be sub 4.5. What does that put me at? Okay, so in this area, because the taxes are a little bit lower here, I'm actually seeing I can actually live in this area with a little higher price point. But since the taxes are higher over here, I actually buy a lower price point. And it gives you an understanding of how much taxes really affect your monthly payment, especially if you're escrowing your taxes, and what interest rates can do to affect the two things that I'm seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, taxes and the interest rate affect the payment more than anything else.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting that I have been noticing lately, again, another topic we haven't talked about and I haven't even thought about. I'm starting, because I pull up the tax information on all of the properties that we write offers on, and I look at like the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm seeing that in 2023, a lot of these properties, people have gotten their taxes reduced. And so, not that this is like a conspiracy theory or anything along those lines, but there's a part of me that is seriously wondering if like we might be able to pick up additional buyers. Obviously, we want to see interest rates get lower, but what if we're picking up additional buyers because affordability becomes more affordable because of taxes?
That, and I also think new construction neighborhoods, MUDs, PIDs, and everything else, majority of the ones that were getting developed in Austin over the last, let's call it 5 to 7 years,
Yeah, they're starting to be paid off.
they're starting to be paid off. So those tax rates that were 3.1, 3.2 are now 2.3 to 2.5, and that's $400 or $500 right there.
Yeah.
Goes back to the same thing. If you have a real estate agent like Matt that can go in there and show you these things, it's going to educate you as a consumer, because I'm telling you the truth, man. Nobody really talks about taxes. They complain about it,
Yeah.
but they don't get educated. But when you can explain to them, well, this development was built off of the taxes being higher because the developer made a deal with the county or the city or whatever.
They put a MUD,
And they put
yep.
they put a MUD in there, and the tax rate's 3.2. But like Matt's saying, it goes down to 2.5. When is that coming? When does that happen? And that data is there for
and
you.
Understanding how long a PID takes and being able to pay something off early and how you apply your credit to it and what kind of credits and just the whole entire scenario of how you go down that rabbit hole, understanding what those do to your taxes and what the planning purposes are for. So I'm going to give you a perfect example. So Bryson, it's basically phasing out last few homes being built / sold in the neighborhood. It's being built there for the last probably 8 years. It's in Leander, right off 183. As soon as they finish 183A, the values are going to go be more there. So anyways, I was showing a lot there. Is that they have these about 12 different half-acre lots that are available, the biggest lots they have in the neighborhood. And some have even lot premiums and everything else. But originally, the tax rate in that neighborhood was 3.2. And I haven't sold a home in there in about 2 years. It's just not an area I farm a lot. But when I think of someone who wants to be Leander, wants a nicer, newer construction home, that's I kind of think of that area. Easier for commute and everything else. So we go there, we look at a half-acre lot, and end up finding out that the tax rate dropped from what was over 3 last time I was there to a 2.3 because the MUD has now been being paid off.
Right.
So basically for the consumer, when they enter it, so sure, you might have waited a little different period. You might have been somewhere with a lower tax rate over the last few years when you focused on your taxes. Now this area has been paid off in the MUD scenario. You can get into the neighborhood you wanted to be in with a higher affordability with a lower payment because of that MUD being
Right.
paid off. And you had the mindset of the investor almost, but for your own personal home, because you focus on a lower tax rate here. Now that's being paid off, you have a lower tax rate here. Now you're in the desirable area, even with prices increasing, you still got in for a less amount because the taxes were less.
Yeah, and
that's
I
$3,000 to $5,000 a month. I mean,
Yeah.
excuse me, $3,000 to $5,000
A year,
annual.
yeah.
Annual taxes. That you take that for 10 years. That's $30,000 to $50,000. That pays off all the credit cards you're talking about.
And you're protected with the homestead cap loss.
Yep, 100%.
And I like talking about these things because I, watch a lot of other podcasts and a lot of other social media mediums, and there's always advice and things like that come across as what I consider to be like a hack.
Mhm.
All you got to do is buy like a 6,000-pound G-Wagon, and you're gonna save a bunch of money. These aren't hacks, right? Like there's no like secret here. Like this is just strategy, and that's what I love about these tips, because for anyone who's listening to this and is like, I kind of get it, but I don't, it's like reach out and we can have this conversation. Like everything that Matt just covered is not like some sort of like loophole or kind of bullshit advice. He doesn't have a course to sell.
The master class for $7.99.
Right, exactly. Like there's
Limited today, limited seatings.
right. These are all just things that are more strategic. I mean, there's value in it for sure, but it's not, it's not some sort of secret. So I really do love going over stuff like that, because I'm always fearful that someone's watching this going like, oh, I talked to a guy who said this and said that. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, this isn't, it might not be something that everybody knows about, but it's also not like some sort of secret.
The secret sauce is go to the Travis Williamson County Appraisal District, and the facts are sitting there in front of you.
Right.
You can see every bit of it's very transparent. You can pick on Williamson County will take you straight to the tax office, and you'll get last year's bills from the consumer.
Right.
So here's the only portion as a consumer. You want to rely on us, real estate agents,
Yep.
because we know where those areas are. You don't have to go do all that research. You just
Yeah, it
gotta
could
say,
take you a while.
Yeah, you can just say, hey, Matt, where was there, if you're watching this video, Matt, where was there a previous development where there was a MUD and a PID,
Yep.
MUD or PID? that was a higher tax rate, that was a lower entry in the sales price, but it's a little bit higher of a sale price now because of appreciation, but the taxes are now lower. Where are those areas?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to tell you where those areas are, and I'm going to call out Shadow Glen right now.
Yep.
Shadow Glen used to be, it's in Manor.
Maynard, yeah.
It used to be over 3%. I just had a listing over there, and I was even shocked when I saw it. It's only 2.3% right now. And that was an area where I used to avoid for buyers who were first-time home buyers because I knew it cost into their affordability
Budget
monthly.
conscious.
Yeah. It basically a buyer affordability where let's just say they were pre-approved at that time for 300, 350. Well, I can't take them there because now the affordability is really like 275 because of the taxes. So
Yeah.
without having to like break their hearts and say, we can't buy here and you're already approved at 350, even though there's a price in the price point, the taxes are too high. So we can't go there. So having that conversation and without having to break their hearts and do that, I was definitely not steered, but just wanted to say, hey, like we got to go a different direction because this is not in your affordability.
Well, yeah, they didn't. You can't steer somebody away from something they can't afford.
Exactly.
They've
not
just
how it
wasted
works.
time, money,
Right.
and efforts. You
It's
know,
like,
another
you
thing
can't
too
afford
is
this.
what about protesting your taxes? I mean, I have helped
Sure.
so many consumers about how
It's
to
so funny.
go down to the county appraisal district and just do it.
And it's so
Yeah.
funny on the flip side, though, it's the only time that us in our industry are going to say, I want you to tell me how low of a value my property has.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it can't be a foreclosure.
Yeah.
It can't be a short sale.
Right.
It can't be a distressed
Can you send me
property.
the comps that really just made my value go to shit?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And I need that by tomorrow. Can you
Yeah.
do that? I had a consumer that right before last year. He said, "I've got 5 fourplexes. I need them all today." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going down to protest my taxes. My meeting's today." I'm like, "Why didn't you give me a week to work on this?" So,
Yeah.
because it's time consuming. It's not
Oh,
like
yeah.
we just click a button and like,
Especially
"Oh,
fourplex is going to be time consuming. If it's like a expectations for consumer. If it's you want to protest your taxes and you're in a large subdivision where there's a lot of homes, take us 5 minutes. But if it's going to be a special property that we may have to do an appreciation plan on, or it's a duplex and there's only like one of the duplex in the area and it hasn't sold in like 7 years, that's way harder for us because we got to find comps in the area within probably the same zip code, figure out what the appreciation rate is on that one that sold 7 years ago, do a 3% appreciation play, explain that to an appraiser so he understands it, and then take that to the courthouse and educate you on that. That's why it would take us a week.
Yep,
Well-
and that's why you have a great agent. One more thing I want to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
So, consumer bought a house for $700,000, 2019. Great journey. Told him exactly what to do next after you purchase. The next thing you have to do is you have to go down to the Williamson County Appraisal District and turn in your homestead exemption form. Okay, did not do it. That property went from 700,000 to 1.2 because he did not have his homestead exemption form filled out.
Oh, God.
That form is so vital. So
Oh,
you,
yeah.
a consumer watching this, you need to, because we don't know what's going to happen with the next explosion in Austin. His taxes went up almost $10,000.
I bet.
So let's explain. Okay, so what
Go
does the
ahead.
homestead exemption do?
Homestead exemption will assure you as a consumer that your property value will not increase over 10%. So, and you also get a deduction. You want to talk a little bit about the deduction?
Yeah, so it's called a homestead cap loss. Let's just say your value is $500,000 and it says assessed value. On average, you're going to look at you're paying a value probably about $430. Don't quote me on that, but that's like a rough idea of what you get as a deduction. Do you know the exact number on the deduction?
No.
No.
So basically, it'll reduce the actual appraised value the value that you're being assessed on. So, example, 100,000. Let's say homestead exemption's filled out correctly, then your value is 90,000, and that's what you're appraised at.
Right.
And one more thing I want to say about this, because I get this so many times: a consumer's ready to write an offer, and they go do their own research, and they're like, "Well, the county has this valued so low, Mr. Randall. This value is only 400,000, and you're wanting me to put an offer in at 600,000. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to purchase today." I was like, "Okay, well, let's talk about this." Remember what Matt said. You want the appraised value to be lower. So what you want to do is use an expert that can come in and educate you on this, because all of this is dollars and cents,
Right.
and it adds up to a lot of money when you're talking about all
Yeah,
these
for
different.
tax purposes, you want your place to be appraised as
Last
low as
portion
possible. Yeah.
on this. What's the difference between a appraisal with a lender and the assessed value of a property on that appraisal? What's the difference?
Go
I
ahead,
mean, I
Matt.
could tell you this. So the
Yeah.
This
assessed
is all you.
value is what the county is assessing it at. It's not done by like a, a licensed real estate appraiser is doing an appraisal for us for lending purposes. We need to make sure that that home is at least worth what you are buying it for. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that I think everybody forgets about, because, in their mind, nothing bad will ever happen. But we as a lender have to always think about the possibility of what happens if you stop making your payments, right? What happens if you die? Okay, these are all like real situations that can happen, and we need to know that the home that we are making an investment on to give you the money for, because you're not really buying the home. We're buying the home, right? Unless you're paying cash for your property, you are not, public service announcement, you are not buying this home. So when I'm asking you for an updated bank statement and you're like, man, I don't understand. What's the big deal? It's like, you're asking my company to cut a check for $750,000. Like, we're going to do our due diligence every single time.
Yep.
You're putting down 3%. Like, who has more to lose here? You or me?
Who has more equity?
Right. So we just are doing our appraisal to make sure that, comparable sales in the neighborhood are going to be what other people are paying for, so that in the event of a nuclear fallout and you dying, foreclosing, whatever, that we are going to be able to mitigate loss as, we're going to lose as little as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to help people, but we're in this for money. Shocker. Profit's not a dirty word. It's the way it is.
Depends if you want to. Never mind.
The county is tax assessing your value based on their own assessment on what to collect as far as taxes are concerned on that particular property. So for that, you want that to be as low as possible.
How much does an appraisal cost? What is a real true cost of an appraisal?
So if you want to use an appraisal for a lender,
Yep.
They're a little more expensive because we need to go through an appraisal management company, which is a third-party company that, basically acts as a referee so that you, me, and everybody else aren't talking to the appraiser directly. And we're typically seeing those running about $500 to $600 depending on the size of the property. If you wanted to get just an appraisal done for tax purposes or for divorce, we see them a lot for divorce purposes.
Yep.
You can usually get an appraiser to do an appraisal for about $400.
Matt, what do you charge your consumers to run the comps? And Matt, is that the same comps that your appraiser's using? Or are they using the same system? Maybe that's a good education today to let the consumers know what exactly the facts are.
So in a normal scenario, if it's not a BPO, a broker price of opinion, which is a completely separate conversation, it doesn't cost you a single dollar to get comps from me.
So they can call you, they find a home online, they're excited, they call you, you can give them a good comparison of what the value of that property is.
I'll basically pull the exact same data the appraiser's going to have, except the appraiser's going to put it in what looks like a broker price of opinion. It's going to be in a full report on an appraisal report. I'm going to send them what I call the Excel spreadsheet of comps.
Okay.
So it's going to have their address, it's going to have everything listed about it. Here's the list prices, here's the close prices, and it looks like I just put this into Excel and did a PDF and send it over to you.
Matt does a great job, knocks it out of the park. You have no problem. And then when the appraisal comes in short, let's say the value is $500,000, they're appraised at $475,000. There's a $25,000 deficit between what the consumer wrote the contract for and what the appraised value is. Is that written on top of the loan, Matt, or how does the consumer handle that?
So that's going to have to come out of pocket. We'll usually look at some of the comparables.
If the buyer wants to proceed with it.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes that can blow up a deal. And luckily, we haven't been seeing appraisals coming in, we call it light, in over a year. I want to say in the last 18 months, I've maybe had one.
I feel like I should have brought my recorder. So if you have the right team together, Matt, does this play into the matters? Because how much money did a consumer really lose? You got option fee. You've got, there's a lot of cost associated. Inspection report. You've got the appraisal. You've spent a couple, $1,500
easily.
It's consumers are very conscious of their money. Most, I should say.
Depending on the contract, on the option fee, but yeah, that's your biggest outlying factor.
Yep. So my point is that you have a right team together, Matt. You you align the consumer with the right price. You showed them exactly, because you said you wrote that contract the other day for over asking price. I know you educated your consumer and said, hey, this is what it's going to cost. If we do a loan, there's going to be a value that you're going to have to come to the table with on top of your down payment and your closing costs, unless that's wrapped in unless that's wrapped in the contract. So having that team, I'm going to say this again today, having that right team in place to put this together is so vital. It's the biggest, asset that you're probably going to have. Why not use the right team and close it and do it correctly instead of, risking it? And
we talked about this on my last podcast. I'd love to get your take on it. Why is it that people are so, what's the word? Why is it that people are so susceptible to go after something that seems too good to be true?
Impulsiveness.
You know what I mean? Because, the main reason I see people that don't work with a team is because there's an online lender that's in, Nebraska, Iowa, and, he seems like a real nice guy, and he's quoting me an interest rate that's like a point lower than everybody else. So even though it sounds too good to be true, I think I gotta continue to go down this rabbit hole and see what happens. And that right there is kind of the rebuttal to what you're saying. It's what we are up against all the time. Let's face it, there's buyers and sellers agents out there that are doing things for 1%, right? Like,
I wish they had car guys that could do this for me because honestly, literally have looked for a Toyota Tacoma till I'm blue in the face, the right price, the right schematics of one, the specifications and everything. And then I look at these Facebook Marketplace, not bashing Facebook Marketplace, but I go there all the time, and it's just like it's so daunting that I look at it and it's like, are these real prices?
right.
Are they people that actually can have? I mean, some of them will salvage titles, which I'm learning a lot about that. But it's almost like I want to have somebody that's me, that's you, that's Matt, that can go out there and help me and guide me through that process. And people just don't know how important it is.
Well, you've been burned before, obviously, because I've talked to a lot of people who haven't, and it's not until they get burned. It goes back to my multiple offer situation. The rich guy who says he can buy the home in cash usually continues to move forward with his Wells Fargo approval until he writes an offer and someone goes, Wells Fargo, this thing's going in the trash. I know how these guys operate. And that's when I get the phone call is after the burn.
Yep. Yep. And that's why if you watch this podcast and you really just, if you're in the market for a home or you have somebody that's interested in a home, you can educate yourself and you can help your friends, your family, the next person so they get what they want. And like I said, I have one gentleman who bought 7 homes from me as an investor here locally in Austin, Texas. We started this journey in 2016. We're 2023. He owns all those homes free and clear. And he's made over $3 million. So set yourself up for retirement because is 401ks really that? I mean, is there pensions? Is there pensions?
Yeah, no, not unless you're like a teacher. And if you're a teacher, you
My wife is a teacher for 9 years, so I get that.
know.
Yeah, I know that. So the money they put into it and the outcome of the retirement is just, it's depressing. So
Yeah.
And there's no $7.99 masterclass included in this.
Yeah.
And there's no limited time. There's
None
no
of us have a
spaces.
course to sell.
Yeah.
No.
Well, gentlemen, is there anything else you want to cover?
I'm good here.
This was a
No.
good one, man. We're going to catch a lot of clips out of this. So I'm going to make sure we have this one edited right away. I'm going to probably have this one out on Thursday morning.
Cool.
Thanks for
And
the
then-
invite. I'm excited about giving you some loans, Matt. I really
Hey,
appreciate you, man.
I look
really
forward
do.
to it. It'll be a seamless process.
This is my first time to meet you too. So
Yeah.
this wasn't scripted or anything out. This
No, I
is
love
my
it.
first time. So
Thanks for saying that.
So this is how we always usually end it. My name is Matthew Kemps. I am with Lone Wolf Realty Group at Spyglass Realty. Again, if you are looking to be a first-time home buyer, looking to understand your current or your equity you have, if you have any debt scenarios, kind of how we just explained, we'd love to go through that process with you and partner up with Matt through that entire process.
You want me to run it?
Run it.
run it.
Matt Kirschling with Gold Star Mortgage. I always have an ask for every one of these I do, and I want to talk to more of the clients that currently own a home that are carrying, a reasonable amount of credit card debt, kind of like what we talked about. I want to talk about not just the home, but the financial kind of future of everything and see if maybe we can get you into that new home while reducing your total outgoing monthly expenses.
And Jason?
Jason Randall, broker associate, Spyglass. Thanks for Matt for inviting me to Spyglass. Super excited. But, I'm just here to educate you. I'm just here to give you the 411 of what real estate's about. So anything I can do to educate you, I'm a phone call away. So 512-736-1593. Love to chat with you and help you with the process.
His number will be right there.
Yeah, we'll have it on it. You'll be able to see it on the screen.
I'm a newbie, so who cares?
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.